Our next topic is homelessness. Mayor Wheeler, everywhere people look in the city, it seems there are tents, people living unsheltered on the streets. What promise can you make the people of Portland right now about how many people you'll get off the street, and when can you make that happen?
So I can't promise a specific number. And one of the things I want us to do, part of my critique, if you will, of the Joint Office of Homeless Services, is we don't have a plan with specific metrics. We don't know how certain investments are going to reduce the camping population that we see out on the streets by a certain amount. I think that's an obligation of the city, it's an obligation of the county, it's an obligation of the state and our partners to work together to put those metrics together. I've been asking for them. I think we need to provide them, and we should. But the way we're going to address it is, number one, there's an urgent crisis around people outside. I don't think it's humane to let people be all over the place, to have them all over the place outside in the elements. So I've called for additional shelter space. I've called for 300 beds in the near term. We've added about 170 in the last few weeks. We're looking for more. And we need to focus on connecting people with the services they need to get off and stay off the street. So that's things like mental health and substance abuse and domestic violence survivorship services. And I'm pushing hard on those fronts too with our partners at the state and the county level.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Iannarone, your response.
The question, could you repeat the question that he answered? I missed a little bit of what exactly.
I was just asking him how many people he thought he could, what promise he could make the people of Portland, how many people he could get off the street and into shelter, and when.
Oh, okay. This is where having a plan matters. I do not understand why the mayor, in the fourth year of his administration, does not have a plan to deal with what he sees as weaknesses in the Joint Office of Homelessness Services, if this has been something that's been a priority for him since he ran in 2016, committing to end the crisis on our streets. This is why it's so important to ask your policymakers for a roadmap to which you can hold them accountable when they come into office committing to solve problems. I have worked very closely with people experiencing homelessness, the direct service providers, policymakers, so that I understand efficient deployment of shelter capacity. I've done it in my neighborhood several times. I've fought to make sure that we're working with the neighborhoods. As a neighborhood association member, I can help us ease the transition so that we can have greater capacity across the city.
Thank you, Sarah Iannarone. And Everton, you're up next.
We're sticking with the topic of homelessness, Ms. Iannarone, and you touched on it a little bit, so you'll get a chance to expand on your views here. Homelessness was obviously an increasing problem in the city before the pandemic, and now there's the potential for more people being at risk than ever once the eviction moratorium expires at the end of the year. Why should voters believe your efforts as mayor won't have similar or worse results than the last 4 years?
Because what I've been calling for years is what the city is finally doing in the midst of a crisis. I called for us establishing smaller, intentional camps around the city that would help us get tents off the streets, make sure that people were protected from the elements with urgency. I worked on transforming spaces like Mount Scott Community Center back in 2017, creating a shelter for over 100 people a night during snowpocalypse, as we called it. And so that model has been there. Now we've seen finally, the mayor's office is leaning into these community-led solutions. But someone like me, who comes from the neighborhoods, who has strong community ties, not just to other policymakers or special interests, but a broad range of community actors in this space, I believe I can be more innovative, bring different groups of people together to work on solutions, make sure that all our faith-based organizations and institutional partners are mobilized and ready to help, and ultimately help us ease the path to creating more transitional housing for more Portlanders.
Thanks, Ms. Iannarone. Mayor Wheeler, your response?
Well, it's somewhat depressing listening to this. First, Ms. Iannarone didn't know that TriMet doesn't actually, it's not part of the city of Portland, so I can't directly make those changes. And now she seems completely unaware of the coalitions and the partnerships and the innovations that we've engaged in over 4 years. The Kenton Woods Women's Village was a success. The expansion of R2D2 was a success. The work we did with public and private sector partners on the Navigation Center in the Pearl District has been successful. The 3 camps that are managed camps that connect people with hygiene, toilets, connections to services have been very successful. The public-private partnership that I spoke at the other day at Bybee Lakes will ultimately have a capacity of over 500 people. So we've been doing it, we've been aggressive, we've been building those coalitions, and we're being successful. We need to do a lot more of all of the above.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you.